Hi, I'm Steve Lopez, LA Times columnist, and today's topic is the county jail. As many of you know, Sheriff Lee Baca on many occasions has said he runs the nation's largest mental hospital. What does he mean by that? Well, I had another visit this week. I've been in the jail before to take a look at this issue, but there are currently 3,200 people in county lockup with a diagnosis of a serious mental illness. So why go back to the jails now? Well, because the County Board of Supervisors is considering a number of options for new jail construction, in part to deal with the overflow in the mental health wings. So they're talking about maybe $1.5 billion in that neighborhood, and there are people who think there might be a better way. Joining me today is Marcia Temple. She is the Executive Director of the Integrated Recovery Network. Marcia, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Now, tell me what Integrated Recovery Network does.
The Integrated Recovery Networks helps with housing, health care for people who have been homeless and mentally ill. And then when they're stabilized, we get them jobs.
Now, I've written about your program, I think it was a year or two ago, and an interesting story about how you started this. You have a background in the medical field, you're also a lawyer, and you found a sort of disconnect. You found that what's happening is that a lot of people are leaving county jail without any roadmap, without any supportive services. Tell me about that.
Right. What I saw was the revolving door between Twin Towers, which is that place in LA County Jail for the mentally ill, and Skid Row. They leave Twin Towers frequently at midnight because that's when their time is up, without any referral to treatment, without medication, without a place to go. They typically end up on Skid Row, which is less than a mile away. They stay there briefly. They do something to attract the attention of police. They go back. The USC study in 2007 said that 95% of the people in Twin Towers had been there before.
Well, that's what I found when I visited on Monday. I asked a couple of people how many times you've been into the system. One guy said he couldn't even, he said, well, geez, I don't know. He started to think about it and said about 15. And the next guy came over and said about 10. So we're churning people through the system. And so this is neither humane nor cost effective. Tell me about recidivism with the clients that you've taken on. And as I understand it, you now have about 90.
Yes, I would say 90. I think the last count was 84, but it fluctuates from day to day. We have different recidivism rates depending on whether somebody is on probation. This is important because for new crimes, the recidivism rate for people who come to us from the criminal justice system, these are mostly people with mental illness and addictions, is right around 20%. But if people are on probation, they can be reviolated by their probation officer, not necessarily for a crime.
Let me ask you two questions. Why in the world are we so inclined to lock up people for often petty crimes or possession that have to do with an underlying mental illness? Why do we lock up people who are sick, number one? And number two, is there a better way to deal with this than to build another prison?
Just briefly answer your second question first, yes. Why do we lock them up? First of all, I've been working with mental illness for many, many years, and one thing I learned years ago is that there seems to be a species fear of madness. When people see people that are mentally ill, they become afraid. And their fear reaction causes them to call the police, to call some sort of an agency, to take those people away from their view. Now, mentally ill people deserve treatment, and mental health services in a punitive setting are not therapeutic. So it is just backwards of making people worse, and that's why so many of them keep going back. Now, there are alternatives. Certain alternatives are in place now. One of them is Project HALO, which is an arrangement between the city attorney and the public defender so that people who with mental illness and access one diagnosis and addiction who are homeless can be diverted into community treatment at time of arraignment. It is very efficient. No specialty court is needed. people get the treatment that they need, the recidivism rates are lower, the people actually do get well, and the money is saved in the jail system and the court system as well.
So it's both more humane and more cost effective. I want to thank Marcia Temple for joining me today. For more information on this topic and others, it's latimes.com, and I'll see you on page 2.